That's right. Well, welcome. I'm Amy Brown.
I'm Brooke Mazzarello.
I'm Jenny Allen.
And the last time you saw us, and we kind of saw you, was at If Gathering 2017.
Yep.
It's been about a month since then. And we love continuing to see all the If locals that are happening around the world still today. And will continue to happen throughout the spring. Jenny, 30 days later, what has been a highlight? What has stuck out to you? You've been on a book tour too, so it's kind of like...
Yeah, there's been a lot. I think actually the tour afterwards was one of the most meaningful things because I actually got to hear so many of your stories locally, both those of you that had just hosted it and you were exhausted and excited and had amazing stories, and then I got to pray with a lot of you that were about to host it. It really is incredible how many of you host If Gathering after If. And so it's just beautiful to see your leadership and to see your teams, to meet your teams. All of you are functioning with a team. It's so cool how this is such a group project, If Gathering top to bottom. And so it's just beautiful to know that you're leading in your places and just so many stories about people that they never thought would come that came, and stories, just miraculous things that God wove together of people being in the right place for the right conversation. And I talked to people whose mother, ended up coming and sitting next to somebody that her daughter had been praying for, and they didn't even know it, and they ended up connecting, and she's going to disciple her. And it's so cool how God does things we never could imagine with, what feels like a small offering with everything. It's pretty chaotic. We always have technical difficulties. I know all of you are running around with your, heads cut off too. So it's always a miracle to me how much God takes our offering and uses it in people's life.
Yeah,
absolutely. And a lot of people are initiating relationships and initiating intentional discipleship with existing people in their lives, with new people in their lives. They're still maybe in the praying phases of what that looks like. And this, what we're going to talk about tonight, didn't come... it was God's faithfulness and sovereignty that he prepared the way for the creation of this tool long before we kind of even knew what If was going to be about. And so I'm excited tonight to talk about If Table. And we want to hear from you guys throughout the night. Use the hashtag #IfTable. If you're in the If Local Facebook group, comment there, ask your questions. We're going to answer them at the end. But let's just go back to what it is you love about If Table and kind of how why we're here tonight talking about this new vision.
Well, even as you were talking about it, I was remembering, Amy, when it was only you and Jessica Taylor on staff at If, and we had a whiteboard, and we whiteboarded If Table, and we didn't know how amazing you all would take this tool and use it. And that if you go to the Instagram board and hit If Table and see all the pictures, it's incredible how many of you have gathered with your friends, gathered with your neighbors, gathered with strangers, and had these deeper conversations about God. It's beautiful, and what it's been is powerful. And I know so many of you have stories of how God has used If Table. I think it is, one of my favorite stories is my sister who gathered with friends that she knew really well, and they realized, we're all comfortable. We all know each other really well. Let's break up and let's invite some people that maybe are just exploring God or are not connected to a church. And so a pair of them, my sister and a friend, invited several friends, and those friends are still close. They're in small group. They're wrestling without faith, and it's just beautiful to know that it's easier sometimes to invite people over to a meal than it is to maybe invite them to an event or to a church. And so I think that's the most powerful thing we've seen If Table do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we kind of have let it run a little organically, right? In these last couple years, it's been different topics every month, and we've really said, okay, you do with it, let it serve your community, let it serve your church. There's different ways you can do that. You can stay super consistent and meet over the years, or you can switch it up every couple months, or your church can utilize it within a community group type curriculum. But we had a specific vision and a specific purpose behind these next 4 if tables that we want to tell you about. And so I think it came from last summer when we went to Dallas, and we went with some women ministry leaders. Tell everyone about kind of that conversation and what was laid on your heart as a result.
Yeah, I mean, we realized, I guess it was 2016 if, where I stood up there. I mean, I feel like the story of my life leading if is saying things and having to take them back because I mean, it's just how it's been since the beginning. So what happened was I stood up there and said, hey, we're going to come to cities, put your cities in, and a bunch of you signed up your cities and wanted us to come, and one of the places we were going to start was Dallas. And so we went ahead and planned that event, and really quickly after, poor Brooke, who's over events, was exhausted after If Gathering, but we just pushed through, planned an event, and it was pretty amazing little event.
It was a good event.
It was a good event, the event that never happened. And it got rained out. And I mean, it was that torrential week of storms in the South. I mean, God did not intend for If Gathering to happen. And so we go, or If citywide. So we go and visit all these different venues, try to find another venue, closed door. And so we had to postpone it. And in that time, we wanted to be sure we were serving the church, because we've always said we exist, if exists, to build tools to put in the hands of you leaders who are building and serving your local churches. So we want to make sure that we're actually helping and serving the local church, not pulling you out of the local church. And so we decided to drive down. Within 2 or 3 days, we contacted every women's ministry leader that we knew in Dallas, and we had a luncheon, and they all came, and they were so gracious and honest, and we just said, listen, we didn't feel like this was an event that was serving you. A lot of people were coming, but we realized that this may not be helpful to your churches. It competes with things you're already doing. And they said, yeah, Jenny, we really don't need you to come and host an event in our city. We need tools for evangelism. We need tools to put in our people's hands to go have meals and conversations, which we had seen work with If Table. And we were like, let's just go back to the initial things God called us to. Let's think through If Table, how we could build tools for that, where you all can invite your neighbors or friends that may be exploring God and have conversations around Him. And let's stay in the business of building tools. Even If Gathering, our big event, is just a tool. I mean, we have, yes, an event where, 2,400 people attend, but the majority of the impact is out there because you all take this tool and you invite your people and you use it in your hometowns, your home churches, your homes. And so what we wanted to do was build another tool like that. We feel like this is our lane, to build tools. Yeah. So how do we build a tool for evangelism? So that started us dreaming, and this incredible tool that we're going to get to introduce to you tonight, I mean, we're all so moved by it. It's a collaboration of a lot of voices, many that you'll be familiar with, and it's honest conversations. This first series, these 4 conversations, are about Jesus, who He is, how He's changed our lives, why we love Him, and what it means to follow Him. So
yeah. So if you've done If Table before, it'll be similar to what you've experienced in the past, except for we have added a DVD or a video. And so the way that your format of your evening would change would be that you'd get together, watch this video first, and then proceed to the table where you'd share a meal and conversation. And so, Brooke, why don't you tell everyone kind of what they can expect from these videos? We filmed this at If 2017 before we kicked off the event.
Yeah, we did. We said, we have such amazing women who come to If Gathering every year and who have such beautiful things to say about their stories and who Jesus is and what He's done in their lives. And so we gathered all those women around the table and had 4 conversations that we filmed for this tool. And so really our hope is that they build a 4-part, whether that's monthly or weekly or whatever. Amy will equip you guys with what that could look like, but whatever that looks like, hopefully it's a series that builds for you to go deeper and deeper with the women around your table. And so the first one, we just start out with what's your experience with God, and just kind of open the table for women to share their story, and you're probably going to have women from all different backgrounds and all different experiences with God and church and religion, and and we want to create just a safe space to lay it all out on the table and be really honest of, here's my experience and here's where I'm coming from and here's how I'm walking into this conversation right now. And then our second conversation, we kind of move into who is Jesus, and really get into the basics of who Jesus is, what he did for us, and what does that mean? What does that mean for us? Very basic, and kind of laying that out. And then we shift the conversation to, why is faith hard? And we want to allow space for questions and wrestling, and I think that we all have those, and that's something where community goes into that with you and walks in that with you, and God meets you in those places, and he's not afraid of that. And so we want to build a conversation that week that's like, hey, what is it that's hard for us to believe about God, or to hang on to faith when things get hard, and be honest about that, and encourage one another in that. And then the last conversation is just, how do we live this out? And so what does it look like for God to be in our daily lives? What does it look like for Jesus to impact the way we see other people, and to, just see our lives and our purpose, and in this life? And so that's sort of the narrative that we hope to build through these conversations.
Yeah. We've all watched them since they happened, and I think Jenny made a really good point in one of the first videos, and that's just, we're always in progress, right? Like, we are always seeking out his truth and his word, and we're always walking through different seasons, and suffering tends to be a common topic of conversation in every video, because it really does shape our faith. And so how that plays a role in how we believe in Jesus, and so this just is like the bedrock for each of these meals, and you come together and you watch the videos, and then there's specific curated conversation cards that correspond with each of the videos. They're not the same questions that you hear women answering in the videos. They're a separate set, and so just like If Table Before, you pull those out and have deep conversation about Jesus. And what's our hope? What's your hope?
I believe in you guys. We have seen you do amazing things over the years. The reason If Gathering exists is because of you and your places leading your people. This has all been a miracle to us, and all we've done is build some tackle for you to go do it. So it just makes sense that we're offering this tackle to you to hopefully gather your people. I pray that you'll be brave enough to invite people that you don't think want to come. I actually heard somebody reporting on a big study that they just did about Christianity, and the people that they hired to do the study are believers, and they actually have done a ton of marketing research for Coca-Cola and huge companies that are secular. And in essence, they were saying to this other ministry, so you basically want us to tell you the public perception of Christianity? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, you want us to help rebrand Christianity? And in their mind, they were going, it needs rebranding. But what was shocking to everyone that did this test and this survey was they got an 80% reply. They were like, we never see 80% of anything, but 80% when asked the question, would you be willing to have a conversation about God? And 80% of people said they would. And I thought, okay, that's my experience, is people are not closed off to God. They're closed off to judgment. They're closed off to opinions and issues. They're not as closed off to Jesus and hearing about him. And so I think you'll be shocked at how many people say yes. Now, we don't need to hide this. We need to say, hey, come engage in this conversation about Jesus, because if they come and they're just shocked, that wouldn't go over well. But I do believe that people will come, and I believe that we can't underestimate in this generation how powerful conversations are. Possibly in generations past, it has been a come to church and see and sign a card, in the back of a pew. that is not the generation that's coming. That's not the generation that is. The generation that is wants to explore this in the form of conversations that aren't judgmental, that feel safe, that feel like they can uncover who he is, what he's asking of us. And you guys are the ones to do this. I love that this didn't end up a bunch of events that we're producing for you. This is just a tool that we built that you all get to go and have honest conversations over food. And there's something about food too.
I know, and when you look at Jesus, he spent so much of his life around the table with people, and I just love that picture of his example and how we can model that in our own lives with the people that he's put right in front of us everywhere. So there's two kind of ways that you can do this. So starting April 1st, just like we have in the past with If Table, at the first of every month for the next 4 months, we'll roll out a new video, a new set of conversation cards, and along with that will always be a leader guide. We've created a leader guide so that you, as kind of the host of this table, we talk about how to invite your friends, and we talk about creating a safe, deep environment, and we even put in there like some scripture that if, say, somebody were to hear a specific story, like when we talk about who is Jesus, there's a lot of stories about Jesus that are mentioned. And so if people want to continue to know Jesus in this way, you can point them to the Word of God, in between tables. So we've thought through all those things. And so on April 1st, that leader guide will be available along with the first video and the first set of conversation cards. The second way is that we've actually put all of these videos and all of the conversation cards into one DVD kit that you can pre-order starting tonight. We have a special price of, what did we say? $22 through Tuesday. And you can get all of these things in one. The reason why we're doing it both ways is that you may have a DVD player at home, and that may be a familiar piece of technology, and it's easy for you to just pop the DVD in your DVD player versus watching it on your computer or getting the computer to go on the TV. Again, technology. So you really have two options. You can do it online month to month as we roll it out, or you can go ahead and buy the DVD and have it all in one and be ready to go. But as Brooke said before, these conversations really do build on one another. And so our hope would just be that if you start in April, or if you start in May, or if you start in June, you would start with that first conversation and really get the buy-in of women around the table after that first conversation to commit to continuing the conversation, because you just, as it's intentional, right?
Yeah.
Just like If Gathering is.
Yeah.
Our hope is that you just kind of start with us and go all the way through.
Well, and another reason you may want to purchase the DVD is if you want to work at a different pace. So some people may want to do 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And the rest of us, I think, are going to do 4 months in a row. So, whatever your style is, but
It's good.
I think the DVD can be a little bit more flexible too, because honestly, the last conversation will not be released until 3 or 4 months from now.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a free resource that's online available to you. So if I want to give some practical kind of advice, and I think both of y'all can really weigh in here on this, but we were talking earlier about, okay, what if I'm a part of an If table that's been together for 2 or 3 or 4 years now at this point? What do I do? And
bust it up. I mean, we're talking 4 meals with, you can have your group every other week, and you can have, we're not saying that you shouldn't gather still with that community. I mean, I have lunch if we're all in town every week with the same 4 friends, because there is something very deep about community that's regular and safe and known. But there's also times for us to get uncomfortable and for us to branch out and bring new people in to have deeper conversations. So I would say for 4 weeks, take a break and see what it looks like to be creative. You could break up into pairs, just like my sister's group did, and 2 of you, invite 4 friends and do this in community still. So
I really like the going off in pairs and hosting it, and making sure that there's a diversity of women at the table. I think that's a really powerful way to do it. The tool, we have a tool if you want to continue meeting and want to discuss something beyond just conversations about Jesus. If still have topical conversation cards. This is a brand new set of cards that we just released at If Gathering 2017, and they just recently were added to the Shop Bay. So if you want to go on and get additional conversational resources, you can do that at shop.ifgathering.com.
And some of these are still spiritual conversations.
Absolutely.
Jesus is in there in some of them.
Absolutely.
Community, we talk about community, we talk about tensions in life, difficulties, talk about our stories in there. So
Totally.
we don't really do shallow very well.
No. But that's what that people love about it. Is
Yeah.
that they can do shallow every conversation they have. This is the greatest excuse to go beneath the surface level. So if you're a church and you're presented with this tool, how would you implement this as a church? What would you say?
Well, it's been so fun to be on the road and to hear how you guys are implementing this in churches, because I think that's beyond anything we dreamed.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful. Some of the stories I've heard, I remember one in California, a woman that said, you know what, our church needs more than anything right now is multi-generational ministry. Every time we start a Bible study, they're typically drawn to it based on age group or life stage, and we need something that's multi-generational. And so they started doing If Table once a month in their church, and they did kind of a big potluck, and they mixed the tables based on age and life stage, and it was so beautiful. They said some of the relationships that have come out of that have been people that bring their neighbor or their friend that they've never come to anything else, but they came to a meal, and that felt disarming. And so it gets them even into the doors of the church potentially, but for a meal and for a great conversation. The other things that we heard from that is just discipleship relationships that were naturally born in an organic way. And so it would be multiple tables in a bigger room that would be set up. But honestly, what we love about most of the tools we try to create is they're super simple. You do not have to complicate it. You don't have to have, a host for every table and have tons of, decorations. You can really keep this simple. I think most of the times that I've done If Table, it has involved ordering pizza. This is something that can be as simple as you want it to be. And then some of you, like my sister, she's like little Martha Stewart. She loves all that stuff, and that's a chance to Pinterest it out. That's great. Go for it. But you don't have to do all of that. So keep it simple. How else have y'all seen churches use it? Or I know we've heard lots of stories.
Totally. And I think if you jump in the If Local Facebook group, there are women who have implemented this at church-wide in really big ways that have incredible advice about how to do this. But I think the unique opportunity that you have here as a church body is one you could keep it in serving your own body, your own church. And I was talking to a girl the other day, and she's in this this church where she's like, there are so many unchurched within my own church, that don't know intimately Jesus. And I think that this is going to be a great tool to move that relationship with Jesus to closer intimacy.
Well, what that makes me think is when was the last time there was, and maybe these exist and you all could tweet these to us with the If Table hashtag, because I'd love to see them. But when was the last time there was a really effective postmodern focused tool for evangelism? I mean, this was our hope. This is we used to do tracts. Like when I was learning evangelism when we were 18 years old, it was knock on a door and read a tract. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I'm quite sure that many of you out there know Jesus because of those people knocking on your door in the tract. However, I do think we're looking at a different generation, and their exploration of Jesus, it definitely looks different. And so we hope and believe that this is hopefully going to be that evangelism tool for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we have some questions that we need to answer. So from social media, one is, do I need to register somewhere, and where are the questions?
We should tell you.
That's a great
where
question.
to register. So
well, you can sign up at iftable.com. You just put in your email address, and on the first of the month, we will email you all the resources that you need. You can also go to shop.ifgathering.com and purchase them.
Spell shop?
Have it. It's SHOPPE.ifgathering.com.
We're fancy around
We're
here.
very fancy. And in that email distribution, you get the link to the questions, and on iftable.com you get the questions as well.
So I think below on the live stream page right here, and if you're watching from Facebook or somewhere else, we'll try to include the link to purchase the DVD.
Yeah, it's below
with the conversation
button.
cards, and yeah, you can click that.
It's good. Okay, so I love how currently it is a safe and comfortable space for us to invite non-believers. I'm guessing this is about Iftable. Yet the questions always point and lead to Jesus. Is that going to continue, or is it going to be only seeker and existing Christian friendly? I really ask as I was at the pre-taping, and based on those questions, I'm wondering.
Well, you know what? I would say the depth. I mean, I learned things from my good friends about their walk with Jesus that I'd never heard before. So, I mean, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, gosh, this is just for somebody that's seeking Jesus, I was so moved by everybody's answers. I mean, we walked through suffering. We walked through some deep stuff. It's not shallow, and it's definitely unpacks the gospel and who Jesus is and what he means to all of us, which I think always challenges us and encourages us. And so I think that it should, and hopefully always will, point to Jesus. I mean, that's the point of if that's what we do, why we do it. So yeah, I think we will always do that. Now, this one specifically isn't focused on who is Jesus and what does he mean to us. So we might have other themes at different times, but this one specifically is very gospel centric.
Yeah, and all the people that participated at the tables are believers in Jesus, and so this is their perspectives and their experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, wondering if it's the same group every month or does it change?
Yeah, I would say your group hopefully is the same, that you commit to 4 weeks, but our groups were very different. So every week we had different people on stage, different people hosting. We wanted you all to see just an amazing assortment of people and the ways that they've come to faith, the ways that they walk with Jesus today, and I think you'll love it. You'll recognize a lot of them from IF.
How do you get involved in a local IF table? Which is a great question. We don't have like a map where you can go and sign up for specific IF tables happening in your area. It's all birthed out of women taking initiative to make it happen and to bring people together. So all you have to do is find one other person who feels as passionate as you do about having conversations about Jesus with other women in your area and inviting a few of them to the table. And I think there's something simple about it and something really beautiful about it. Also in the IF Local Facebook group, you can always try and connect with other IF women in your area. That's a great place to do it. If you kind of feel alone and like you need that other person.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that. They'll get on and say, does anybody have an IF table in Wichita? And sure enough, there'll be a stream. Here comes the comments.
Yeah, the Wichita Girls rally. Yeah,
Yep.
For sure.
So,
is it also a place for non-churchgoers? How would I go about helping someone far from me find one to join?
yeah, I think this is something that is happening organically. I mean, I don't think this is, again, we haven't thus far started maps because this is a small group. So if we started a map, y'all would be having some big old tables.
Yeah.
So I think we need to keep this organic and just encourage that person to have a conversation. I mean, maybe you should, go visit and help them get started. But I really think it is so simple. I mean, it's conversation cards. We provide those. Basically, we even provide recipes. All you have to do is just figure out what you're serving and invite some people over. So keep it simple.
Yeah, and specifically with this conversation series, we really want this to be a place for non-church goers. We really want them to feel like they have a seat at the table and can talk about their, like, who Jesus is, like, and interact with other believers.
Another thing I think is worth mentioning is on Monday we're going to announce, and she thought, if one of them comes, and I think she took it to like her 10 people on their little area in their land. y'all, they all came. They all came. And I mean, she couldn't believe it. And so I just think it's not being afraid to just say it and trust that 80% rule is true, that there's a lot of people out there anxious to just explore faith in a non-threatening way.
Absolutely.
And they may end up just coming for your enchiladas in a different place. Like everybody's coming from a different place spiritually. And you know what I've heard, most people's response is, well, how long are we going to talk about God? You know, how serious is this? And the funny thing is, when that has been the question, they end up there all night. Like they don't leave.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's not being afraid to just say it and trust that 80% rule is true, that there's a lot of people out there anxious to just explore faith in a non-threatening way.
Absolutely.
And they may end up just coming for your enchiladas, and good for you. Good for making awesome enchiladas.
Totally. And then you know their name, and you can continue to be a part of their life. And you know, like, we're not, I mean, my hope would just be that people would build relationships, get to know Jesus, and that this would just be a starting point for people to do that, right?
Or or I was just gonna say, or there's probably people in your life who are close to you that there's just